Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome and thank you for attending our webinar today, The Secrets to Starting a Successful Business, How to Increase Your Chances of Startup Success from Idea to Launch with Bernie Foos and Trey Zachary. Before we begin, I want to take care of some housekeeping. Please feel free at any time to ask us questions during the webinar using the GoToWebinar control panel. We will try to answer your questions at the end of the presentation, but in the event we run out of time, one of our presenters will reach out to you personally. Also, each attendee to this webinar will receive a copy of the Entrepreneur Startup Kit. This will be sent to you electronically through email within the next 24 hours. So with that housekeeping taken care of, I'd like to introduce Bernie Foos and Trey Zachary. Bernie?
Thank you, Jonathan, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the webinar. We are excited to talk about the secrets to starting a successful business today. Big caveat right up front. We are not here to give you the secret idea. If we were to do that, we'd be billionaires right now. So whether it's the iPhone or the next Fry Festival, that's your idea. We're here to give you some ideas to increase your chances of success with that business, even if it is the next Fry Festival. I highly recommend the Netflix documentary. But more importantly, look, we're going to have some fun today. Make it a conversation between myself and Trey Zachary. And if you even take just one tip today for your business venture, I think it'll be a success for you. So, what are we going to do today? First and foremost, we're going to tell you who the heck we are and why the heck we're talking to you. Number two, we're going to tell you what you're up against. If you're looking to start a business or you're already in the beginning stages, what are you up against? Steps you can take to increase your chances of success. As Jonathan pointed out, we put together a 20-step checklist for any entrepreneur out there. Boxes you can check to increase your chances of success. Again, those are things we've been through the fire. These are little pitfalls that you can avoid so you can focus your time on the actual business and not some of these pitfalls that can really, really get you into trouble. And as we go throughout, feel free to submit a question. We're hopefully going to leave 10 or 15 minutes at the end to answer any of those questions. And certainly myself and Mr. Zachary will be available offline to answer any of those questions. So, who the heck are we? Well, again, my name is Bernie Foos. I am an attorney here at Butzel Long. I specialize in business and trade secret litigation. So a lot of businesses who are looking to protect their information, protect their ideas. I do a lot of that work both on the litigation end, when you know what hits the fan, but a lot of consulting beforehand when people are actually trying to take the steps to make sure they avoid having to pay those legal fees. I also have a separate small business on the side called FoosFit. FoosFit. So it's designated towards working professionals out there looking to try to get into the best shape of their life, all the while juggling a demanding career. I myself, I have 4 kids. Trey has 2. Twins. Life can be difficult and busy sometimes.
Double trouble.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's balanced, but it's certainly a juggle. But it's fun and we love it. Trey Zachary, who is here to my right, he's going to take over. Trey is the CEO of Corporate Elevator Management. To keep it simple, if you have any elevator needs, Trey is there to consult with you. It is a 7-figure business, and Trey has been doing it for quite some time now and has really done a great job taking it from the beginning stages all the way to the success that it is right now. Trey is also the founder of a brand new podcast called Mogul Secrets. Trey's going to get into that a little bit, but a really exciting project that it was funny. We kind of brainstormed about it many, many months ago, and to see him take that idea and go to launch just within the last week or so is pretty darn exciting. And the gist of it is, and Trey, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but you're interviewing successful entrepreneurs and celebrities and the like, and asking them how the heck they got there. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. I mean, the podcast is all about the dope conversations I was having with some of my friends. You know, athletes, entertainers, successful entrepreneurs, you name it. We had all these conversations. I'm like, man, I wish I would have heard these 15 years ago. So the podcast is really for my younger self.
Yeah. And we'll have obviously information on that if anybody wants to check it out. But I think one of the cool things is I think your first podcast is with the Black Panther himself. Is that right?
Wakanda forever, my friend.
So Chadwick Boseman, the actor, him and Trey actually go way, way back. But I think the podcast, we're pretty tight in that regard. And you got some other people that you
Yeah, we've got some other exciting people on the docket, You'll have to tune in to see, but it won't be a new introduction to them when you hear them.
So I think a common theme through all of this, and this is a thing that I found on Instagram, and I posted it, 1 hour into being an entrepreneur, man, it can be frustrating. And tell the folks out there, I don't think this feeling ever goes away.
Yeah, I was going to say that should be 1 hour into being an entrepreneur, and then it should have a dash and say 1,000 hours into being an entrepreneur, because the feeling never goes away.
Yeah, let's just get into it, Trey. I'll turn it over to you, but we've introduced the folks to who the heck we are and the life of an entrepreneur and all that, but if you're starting out, kind of like you and I have in some of our business ventures and those on the call, what are you up against?
Well, you're up against everything. So as you can see from the stat, 90% of startups ultimately fail, and that's because of poor planning and things of that nature. And the reason that they fail is actually their incompetence. So being not prepared, not understanding what you're up against, not planning it beforehand, which is exactly why you're at this webinar, is to figure this stuff out right now. There's all kinds of things that can come up that will deter you from being successful in your business.
Well, to the incompetence point, I think we talked about it a little bit at the outset. I don't want to give it away, but again, I highly recommend folks out there to watch this documentary.
Oh, yeah.
On the Fire Festival.
Fire Festival.
Fire Festival.
It's spelled Fyre.
I mean, I watched it and my jaw was to the floor. It was this gentleman named Billy McFarland and Ja Rule, for all those out there who are familiar with the late 90s, early 2000s rapper. They came out with this great idea. They were visionaries. They were going to do, Coachella 2.0, Woodstock 3.0. It was an amazing idea, right?
Oh, it looked awesome. I mean, when you look at the Instagram videos, I was sitting there looking like, oh my goodness, this is for every celebrity in the world's going to be there. It's going to be just great. And he had everything set up to do that, quite honestly.
But this is where incompetence comes into play. Talk about not having the logistics and the know-how behind the idea and just doing your best to push through it. Man, they failed, and they failed epically. Again, I recommend the documentary. We won't get into it too much, but I think that underscores, why do startups fail, and incompetence is a big one. Why else did they fail?
Well, as you see here, lack of experience in what they're working on, neglect. A lot of times, if you just neglect things that you're not good at, one piece of advice I always say to entrepreneurs is know what you're not good at and hire or find somebody else that can do that job for you. Because if you neglect it or you do a bad job at it, you're just setting yourself up for more failure.
So yeah, there's some reasons of why these companies fail. There's lots of statistics out there, and you can see them here. Here's some additional crazy facts before we start getting into the nitty-gritty. Some common themes are you are more likely to succeed if you previously failed versus a first-time startup. I think I can speak to this, and I've started a few different companies. Some of them have been successful, some have not been, for a variety of reasons, one of which is, you think you have a great idea, but nobody wants it. But if you failed that first time, I think you got some good experience, life experience.
Oh, yeah. So I've failed many times. I still fail. I look at things as not failure, though. I always say there's no failure, you just learn and grow. It's actually part of my daily affirmations. I'm crazy in that aspect where I talk to myself. But there is no failure. You just learn and grow. I've started businesses from the time I was a teen until, recently we just launched Trulux Elevator Interior last year. That's not a failure, but the lessons that I learned in failure, from starting a cell phone website when I was in college to a failed car company, which we'll talk about that later, those lessons learned help set me up for the success in the future. So
no doubt about it. Another crazy fact, and this one just blew me away. 95% of entrepreneurs have a bachelor degree or higher. Now, that's not to deter those that don't have those. I think there's been many, many success stories.
Absolutely.
The world's, some of the biggest billionaires don't have bachelor degrees. But I saw this statistic and I thought it was crazy. But it kind of makes sense and it kind of doesn't, because I think those of us, like I've got 2 degrees. I'm a lawyer and I got my undergrad in accounting and finance. A lot of us are beholden to that degree. You spend all this time, you spend all this money getting that piece of paper, and you feel obligated to stay in that career. But to see that most entrepreneurs have that degree and they venture off into something else was pretty crazy. I think you actually have your degree's in marketing, right?
Yeah, but I have a story of I'm in elevators. I'm in something that's mechanically inclined and for engineers. That's mainly the people that are in my field. But what college did for me, one, it puts you in the right place at the right time, so to speak. I actually fell into the elevator industry out of a career fair. I was actually going there to find a pharmaceutical sales job because I worked for Pfizer prior to that. And on my way out the door, a gentleman says, "Hey, why don't you come check us out?" I'm not one to pass up on opportunity.
Right.
So I'm like, "All right, I'll come check out your booth." I check out his booth. He's like, "Hey, I want to interview you." I'm like, "All right, I don't pass up on opportunity, so let me go to the interview." And long story short, they had the best offer. And that was I had Google offer. I had a few other Newell Rubbermaid, some pretty decent offers. And here I am, all because to me, I was in the right place at the right time. You surround yourself with successful people. And that's, like you said, that's not to say that if you don't have a bachelor degree or above or any type of degree, you're not going to be successful. But I think why that stat is because most people in college are on that same tune, that same path of success. So.
Right. And frankly, this is a conversation for a whole separate webinar, but just given how expensive college is these days and the student loans, I just don't know that's a viable thing for a lot of people in any event going forward. Another thing that I thought was crazy is, 2 minds are better than one. Kind of makes sense. It's cliche, but some of these statistics show that if there's 2 founders rather than 1, it significantly increases your odds of success. And then another thing too, and I think this just puts things into perspective. There's a lot of need and want for instant gratification. That is just society these days. That's the internet, and again, that's a whole nother discussion. But those of us who are entrepreneurs and who have guided entrepreneurs, you will likely not become a billionaire or a millionaire or maybe not even a thousandaire in your first year, 2 or 3. You have to be patient. And I think this was a pretty good stat. The average founder's salary in their first year is 50 grand. And even that's pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. When I first started my businesses, I took a pay cut, a drastic pay cut. And my wife was like, "What the heck are you doing?" I mean, we had, our bills didn't change. But you take that risk knowing that in the future it'll pay off. So, like you said, you may not be a thousandaire, you may not be making the big bucks right away, but the ultimate plan is to know that in the future, the cut you're taking will be more than compensated for.
So let's kind of get into what I call the nitty gritty. What can you actually do to increase your chances of success? Now, again, in the next 24 hours, you're going to get 20 steps, 20 boxes you can check. I think the more boxes you check on this list, the greater chance you have to succeed. We're not going to hit all 20 steps today. We don't have that much time, but we're going to hit some of the big ones and share our input on that. So let's start with kind of 1 or 2. You've got the idea. I've got the next Fire Festival. I've got the next iPhone idea.
Well, let's start even a little before.
Sure.
The you've got the idea. Maybe you just know you want to be an entrepreneur. So let's talk about that a little bit and how to find that idea. And I say use your life experiences, use the job that you're in. I'm a perfect example. I'm in the elevator industry selling elevators. I used to say I sling elevators. The pharmaceutical reps say they sling drugs. I slung elevators. So at the end of the day, I looked at that and said, hey, that is a niche. That is super niche down. Nobody does it. Let me figure out a way to make an impact within that industry. And I think, you can do that within industry, any industry that you're in. Like I broke it down to Bernie and I play basketball together. And I was telling him, I was like, it can go down to as simple as taking all the things that are made in a basketball game. You got a basketball, you got whistles, you got referee shirts, you got shorts, uniforms, you got all things. I mean, manufactured nets. You can come into so many different ideas based off of what you're interested in, and then build that idea from there. So once you have the idea, that's when you want to start brainstorming your idea. You want to start mind mapping, word storm. You want to start figuring out what you're going to do within that idea. And then once you have that down, you want to rethink it. So you want to look at it, rethink it, start seeking advice, ask your family, your friends. Those are the people that you're going to feel most comfortable with asking. So start there. And then once you get a little more comfortable, go outside of that and start talking to, your colleagues, and just move forward from there to where you have the wherewithal to go after a complete stranger and ask them, hey, what do you think of this? Because ultimately, you need to get to your end user who's going to buy your product.
And to your point, I think I highly recommend you put it on paper. Some people really believe in whiteboards and vision boards. I am all for that. What I ended up doing, look, I'm almost 40 years old. I started my third or fourth business, in the past year. What I did though is I took out my legal pad of paper, I put a big circle in the middle, and I put things that I'm passionate about. Health, fitness, helping people. And then I just started branching off. I mean, some people call it mind mapping and word storming and blind writing. I just started putting out branches of things that related to that. Life coaching, fitness training, whole bunch of things, nutrition supplements, like you name it. I just threw it on paper so I could see it. And I've got it saved still, and I'm probably going to frame it. But, that was my initial pen to paper moment. Some folks do finger to keyboard. Some folks do markers to whiteboards. But I just, look, different strokes for different folks. But I think putting that onto some kind of paper is the start. You start to see it. You start to visualize it. You start to get a handle on what you like, what you don't like. And you can always come back to it. You've written it down. But I think it's a really good starting point.
Yeah, I've got the same method, except I'm a type it into the keyboard guy. But I do it just as simple. I literally open up a blank Word document and I get to typing, and then I like to organize it after the fact, after I get all my ideas on paper. And then, like Bernie said, you have something in front of you that you can look at. I literally have, matter of fact, I have my computer right here. If you open it, I've got all my plans for this year for my companies still laid out in a Word document. It's all organized, but it's just open on my desktop. Never closes, so I see it every day.
And it's always there to remind you. So let's say you've done the mind mapping, you've written it down, you've created your, 30-word vision board. What do you do then? I mean, I think we know, but walk through it in your business and this whole mogul secrets thing that you wanted to do. You had this idea. I assume you had to do some research for it?
Yeah, so as you see up there, Google is free, but I want to say Google is your best friend. I mean, or if you like Bing or whatever you want to choose, just use the search box and literally start researching. So we take it to the podcast. I literally research all the podcasts that are out there. And then I niched it down. Who's got a business podcast? Who talks to successful entrepreneurs? Okay, then I start listening to those podcasts, writing down what I do and don't like about them. And that's where you start learning from them. And then the next step is, what can you do better? What is your unique value add to the market? So that's kind of the process that I go through. Just research, and plan.
Right. I mean, look, the chances are extremely likely that someone is probably out there doing a form of what you want to be doing. So if you find that and you research that, don't stop there. I mean, you talk about Starbucks. They probably weren't the first coffee company.
No.
Burger King, McDonald's. I mean, at some point, you have to ask yourself, okay, this is what they're doing. Can I do it better, or can I do it a little bit different? But that's where the research comes in. You don't actually have to reinvent the wheel. You can take and pick and choose what you like, what you don't like, and go from there. But you got to do your own research. It's free.
You do your research and you make it unique. And I'll give Bernie, I'll give you an example from your own. Fitness is nothing new.
Right.
I mean, people, your plans are great, but the information is out there. It's the way you've packaged it. It's the way you differentiated yourself from the rest of your competition. I mean, I know my wife uses your fitness plan. I use your fitness plan. My wife is like, "This is the best thing ever." Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's literally, and it's nothing new. I feel like I told her the information years ago. You know?
And I stole it from you. I mean, you know, but no, to that point, right? It's, you look at social media and look, there's fitness plans galore and there's influencers just in that market. Well, similar to what you did, I went out and I followed all these people. What I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at. I mean, look, I'm not a 260-pound buff monster. I don't got time for that.
Right.
I ended up finding, look, this is my lifestyle. I created a program that works for my lifestyle. 4 kids, a demanding career, all that stuff goes out to it. So I found that my target market are busy people like me who want to get in shape, but also want to have time for their kids and their families and their careers. And look, I've tried some things that have failed, but I found a lot of things that really worked, and that kind of shaped my business. But it was all free research. I didn't have to spend 5 or 10 grand to have a research company go out there and do market research for me. I'd invest my time at night when I got back from work and the kids went to sleep. But, you know, outside of my time, Google's free. So use it. And if you find like one article or something, like, don't stop there, okay? I mean,
yeah, literally build your database. Like the marketing research companies he mentioned, all they're doing is what you're capable of. And I'm not saying that they don't do a better job and that they aren't worth what you pay them. I'm just saying, when we're in startup stages, we're lean. We do what's necessary. Right. And necessary is your own time to spend doing market research and things of that nature.
So you got the idea, you brainstormed it, you've researched it, you're ready to go even further. I'm going to skip ahead in terms of the checklist, but I think the next thing that I highly recommend that you do that a lot of people just don't do, and this underscores pen to paper, finger to keyboard, create a business plan. And it helps you, and it helps potential people that might want to invest in your company. But really, let's just focus on you. You can Google this. There's business plans galore out there and templates. And even in our entrepreneur kit, I kind of give you a laundry list of things that should be in a business plan. Some of them, like an executive summary, a company overview of what the heck you do. You should be able to explain what you do, at least in a few sentences. You put together a financial plan, some key milestones and goals that you want to hit. And again, you may not have all the answers in that business plan, but getting that outline together really helps you organize and stage things that you should be doing and checking boxes. So eventually it helps you in terms of where you want to go. But let's say, hey, I need 50 grand to, get this brick and mortar place, or I need 50 grand or 25 grand, or heck, $1,000. You're going to have to go to somebody, whether it's a bank or your mom, or it's easier to go to them like, hey, here's my business plan. They can see it. It adds credibility to yourself. It helps you with the business itself, and it gives someone who may want to give you $1,000 or $50,000 or more something tangible to see.
Yeah, there's the old adage of fail to plan, plan to fail. So I always say, I've sat on some panels in the past and they ask what's the most important thing, and I say plan, plan, plan. Bernie's right. You got to know where you're going. You got to have some goals in mind. You've got to have some measurable goals in mind. So when you have the plan, there's something you can actually check off. One, it helps you see progress, and two, it helps you get to the final stages that you're trying to get to. And then when he's talking about finances, it's simple. If somebody comes up to you and asks you for $100, you're going to say, for what? What do you need it for? It's the same thing in business. If you're going to go to somebody and ask them for money, you need to be able to tell them for what. And a business plan is the best way to articulate that to who you're asking the money from.
And I'll give you just a simple war story with my little fitness company. I didn't jump from pen and paper to going live on Instagram or my website, right? One of the first goals or tasks that I had was, and I wrote it down, was I need to get 5 test pilots, people that I'm going to put through the program for 8 weeks to make sure I know it works. I'm physical proof, but outside of myself, it would be nice to show investors and potential future clients that, hey, here's other stories of real people with real careers, real families, and it works. So I found 5 people, I put them through the program, and it worked. And they became, showcases for me. But it added credibility to my idea and the platform that I was trying to sell. It was on my business plan checklist, and I ended up checking that box. And then from there, I was able to create a website. And from there, I was able to do a social media campaign. And from there, I was able to go live with that. And from there, I was able to kind of expand my platform and my social network and my client base and things that I was doing. Now going forward, I've got sponsorships and influencers and brand ambassador things that I kind of have on the horizon. But I couldn't get there unless I was checking some of those boxes before. And again, it's a long-winded way of saying create. It's a working document, right? But create a business plan.
Yeah, and then just to add a little bit to that, don't let the business plan be daunting. Meaning, just do it. Whip out a pen and paper and start planning. You can have literally bullet points and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this next, and literally just make it happen. Then you can worry about organizing it and making it into a pretty business plan later. But the main thing is to get it on paper.
It doesn't have to be the Jerry Maguire manifesto, although he wrote that in a night. But it starts with an outline, and you can fill in the meat later.
He's also Jerry Maguire.
He is Jerry Maguire. All right, we're going to skip ahead again. And look, I am a lawyer. This is through Butzel Long, so we do got to talk a little bit about lawyering, but I promise we'll keep it short and simple. But this is one of the biggest pitfalls and mistakes people make. And I'll kick it to Trey for a quick little war story, and then I'll jump in. But
Well, Bernie's absolutely correct. Get a lawyer, do things right the first time. So as I've told you, I've had some failures in the past. One of the things that I did was I owned a car lot. It was in Georgia, and I made the mistake of trying to cut corners. And I'll try and shorten this story, but the short story of it is that I signed some documents I had absolutely no business signing. I personally guaranteed these documents, and it ended up costing me thousands of dollars. And I think, actually, I'm more than convinced that this would have been avoided had I had the right legal counsel and had taken the proper steps to make sure that I set things up the correct way. It's a horror story. We're past it, but it was not a good time, and it could have been avoided just by simply seeking some legal counsel and spending thousands of dollars on that versus spending probably a few $100 for a guy's to review this contract.
I mean, that kudos to you, and those are not easy things to admit for anybody. I mean, you fashion yourself as a business person, and you want to be the success, and look, it's everybody out there. Look, we're all scared to fail. I mean, that's just the reality of it. That's okay. Are you willing to accept failure, though, I think is the big thing, and own up to it. And look, you've been very, very, very successful, but you failed. I mean, that's an embarrassing thing for some people, and I get it. But, kudos to you for sharing that story. But let me echo it. I've seen it as a lawyer, separate from my business and failures. People come to me after bad things happen. And look, I'm in the lawyer business. I make more money when you make mistakes early on and you come to me and you've been sued, or someone steals your idea and takes your idea. You're going to have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on lawyers like me to get you out of the jam. Now look, a common response I get is, look man, cash is limited. I got lots of things I'm trying to do. I'll figure out the lawyer stuff after I get up and running. Well, oftentimes, folks, that's just too late. And this kind of goes back to checking the box. It is so much cheaper to do it right the first time. I'm talking hundreds of dollars, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 depending on what you're trying to do, but get the right business structure set up, okay? You probably don't want to start the business in your own name. You need an LLC or an S Corp, something like that. You need a tax ID, you need a permit, you might need a draft contract depending on what you're selling. There are lawyers out there who can do this fairly efficient and effective, put together packages for you. Lawyers are like any other service out there. You can go out there, you can get quotes, see how much it's going to take. It should not cost you an arm and a leg. If an attorney comes back to you and says it's 20 grand, go find a different attorney to set up your business operation, okay? Shop around and get quotes. Don't do legal forms. LegalZoom and the like, look, yeah, it's one of my competitors out there, but I'm telling you folks, every state is different, every country is different, every city is different, and every judge, when you do get into trouble, is different. And one size does not fit all. So look, can LegalZoom be helpful in some extent? Maybe. But just go to a lawyer and do it right the first time, because if you get a bad contract like you signed, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And that kind of leads me into step 10. Protect your idea. You've got this great idea. It could be the new Coca-Cola. It could be, the next awesome fire festival or Woodstock. You've got this idea. You're ready to make money on it. It is cheap to protect that idea. For example, if you've got the secret recipe and you need to hire some employees, have them at a bare minimum sign a 1 or 2 page confidentiality agreement. If you don't get that in place, there's nothing stopping them from taking your idea, going across the street, and doing it themselves. It's simple 101 stuff. And if you come to me like, oh my gosh, this guy took my idea and you didn't get a contract, you're going to be what's creek without a paddle. But if you would have just done it right the first time, you would have been able to protect that. To that point too, I've got a case that I handled in 2018 where this person had a great idea, very successful business owner. He went and pitched this idea to a very famous celebrity. Did not get an NDA signed, which is a very common thing where you're going to pitch ideas, whether it's on Shark Tank or the like. Didn't get it. Well, said celebrity allegedly took that idea and did it himself. My client comes to me and says, what the heck do I do? We were able to do some things to help that, but man, he would have been in a much better position from a legal standpoint, from a rights standpoint, if he just had a simple NDA signed. And I guarantee you, this person likely would have signed it before they went into that meeting. It is a very common thing in the business world, and it adds credibility. But there are ways and simple things you can do to protect your idea up front that is so much cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in a little bit there. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm always listening to new ideas and discussing ideas with other people. And one of the things that I do once the discussions start getting anywhere near semi-serious, the NDAs come out.
Right.
And we sign them. And because, when everybody can make friends ahead of time, before, anything bad happens, everybody's got excited about this new idea. So you really have no problems getting people to sign this stuff because everybody's excited and it's all good stuff. But after the fact, if things break up and are bad, nobody wants to talk about anything. So
that goes into operating agreements and all that stuff. I mean, if you have a business partner, look, do things while you're friends. Get the operating agreement set up the right way. You can forecast in that document if we were to divorce as friends.
Yep, I always say plan your breakup.
Yep. So again, let's kind of get out of the legal world. But again, a necessary evil, folks. I've just seen too many horror stories. I want to jump ahead and look, you've got the idea, you've got a business plan, you've got the right agreements in place, you're ready to go live. This kind of goes into the marketing component, but why don't you talk about social media and how you can use that?
Well, social media is huge. In this day and age, social media it's the new commercials. It's the new billboard advertisement. It's the way to get your message out. And in doing that, with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Pinterest, content is king. You want to add value to every person that reads your posts. So when Bernie posts on his fitness page about, what the right foods to eat, people actually, that's something they can digest. Play on words. That's something they can actually put into their repertoire and say, hey, this is good information. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. And with, Instagram and things of that nature and videos, you can get really creative. Everybody wants to go viral. But I think the key to starting with good content is just to add value.
Right. And look, let's go with that instant gratification. That is society these days. Look, I am a victim, or maybe I'm a, however you want to describe it, a culprit, if you will. I want instant gratification.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
human. I mean, yeah, I want to be a millionaire again tomorrow, but you have to be patient. And to your point about social media, right? Start an Instagram page. Start making posts. Start putting captions that people can read and that there's value to it. In my fitness arena, to your point, I'll make posts that are personal in terms of, life quotes and things like that. I'll share personal photos of me and myself and my kids to, make it relatable. But also put nutrition posts on things that I've seen on the internet or things that I've come up with that I think are valuable. Now look, it may get 10 likes, it may get 1,000 likes. I don't know. You got to play with that. And not every post, the majority of posts will not go viral. But if you build a database of good content that people want to see, eventually the followers and the people who are your target audience, they will come if it's a good idea, if it's things that they want to see. But you got to get out there, you got to do it, you got to start posting, you got to start following people, and you got to start finding the right social media platform. One of my big things is be on multiple platforms, right? So Twitter is a great platform for me spreading legal advice. I post a lot. I don't have a huge following on Twitter, mostly lawyers, but I share legal updates and things like that. Same thing with LinkedIn. Instagram is really my niche for the fitness stuff that I post. There's a lot of folks out there. It's a younger generation that are into the fitness and want to buy programs. So I put a lot of time and investment into the Instagram thing. Facebook, not so much. Your business might be a little bit different.
Yeah, everything, I think that leads into what I was going to say about understanding the different platforms. Do your research on them. Understand how to use them effectively. On Instagram, there's the hashtags and understand how they link to other, people can actually search by hashtags. Understand on Facebook how to run Facebook ads. Literally do your research. Don't just jump on there and start posting. Actually, again, it goes back to having a plan. Plan out what your social media is going to be. And there's all kinds of ways to help and tools and resources. If you're not a social media guru, there's people out there that'll handle it for you. And they're not overly expensive. So there's all kinds of ways to make sure that you put the right content on social media to promote your business in the right aspect.
There's a lot of folks out there that you can follow who, again, I follow a whole bunch of people, different strokes for different folks. Don't take one specific person's or even take our specific advice on it. Get a lot of input and find out what works best for you. One of the things is, I thought about starting a YouTube channel, but I don't really know where I want to go with that. That's working for some people. That doesn't really fit my business plan on what I want to do. May I add it at some point? Maybe. But I've done enough research that, just giving my time commitments, that's not something that I want to invest in, at least right now. But you've got to do the research to figure that out.
Yep. Understand it.
Let's jump ahead to some bookkeeping stuff. Quite literally. So I'm a person who has made a mistake in this regard, right? You're running a business. You're expending money. You are getting in revenue. You're doing some things. It is a lot easier to start with a clean sheet or a bookkeeper or find a person that can keep track of that thing instead of waiting. I'll kick it to you in terms of bookkeepers and accountants. What do you recommend in this regard?
Well, yeah, you have to have something. If you don't have an accountant, you got to keep track of it yourself. And I'll say, don't let things build up. Just do it daily. Keep track of things daily. That way you don't have to go in at the end of the year when you're trying to do your taxes and spend 10, 12, 13 hours trying to find your receipts and everything else. Stay organized in that aspect, because it's also key to running the business is to know your cash flow. I can give you all kinds of AR horror stories where the business is healthy. It's just the cash in the bank isn't healthy because our receivables are outstanding. That's part of your accounting. So you want to make sure that you have some system. I use QuickBooks for all my businesses. QuickBooks it can be as small as you need it to be, and it can be as large as you need it to be. So I recommend that, but there's all kinds of software that'll integrate into your phone, integrate into whatever type of computer programs you run. It's an essential. Get some type of accounting in place.
Look, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. I have an accounting background, so I've always done my own taxes. But look, with my lawyer business and my separate businesses and the kids and the coach and all the things that I do, I just don't have enough time to dedicate to some of this accounting administrative stuff anymore. So ultimately, I decided to bite the bullet and finally get an account in to kind of manage those things. I certainly collect these things. I have QuickBooks. I got to do a better job of tracking that, but I've gotten to the point where if I'm spending 15 hours going back and recreating receipts, like that's time away from my businesses and what I should be doing. Whereas if I got QuickBooks up and running, even if it's just the first receipt, if I do it right, or if you do it right at the beginning, that just makes your life a lot easier. So we recommend it. If you don't do it, look, people wait to the last minute, and you'll be the one spending 15 hours plus trying to go back and track this stuff. And the last thing you want, folks, honestly, from a lawyer perspective and from a business owner perspective, you do not want an IRS issue. Even if it's them saying, hey, you're about to get audited, or where's this, you don't want to be dealing with that. Do it right at the outset so you can avoid, the tax man and stuff like that, and dealing with issues like that when you should be focusing on your business. Same thing from a lawyer perspective. Do it right the first time. The last thing you want to do is spend hours and hours with someone like me talking about things that happened in the past, avoiding a lawsuit or dealing with a lawsuit. That's time away from your business.
And nothing's more frustrating as an entrepreneur than dealing with stuff that you don't want to deal with. It's not fun dealing with the lawyers. It's not fun dealing with the accountants when you got big things to cover.
So this kind of brings us into, this is a cliche quote. You hear it in politics all the time, and really just these entrepreneurial gurus. But man, is it true.
Yeah.
Don't let perfect get in the way of progress. At some point, you got to launch, learn, revise, and keep going forward. I think you can attest to this.
Oh, absolutely. There's a book by Steve Harvey, who's started as a comedian. You guys are probably all familiar with him, but the title of the book is called Jump. And basically what the cliff notes to the book is, what he's saying is, whatever it is, you can plan all you want. Eventually, you got to jump. And I experienced this. I've had the Mogul Secrets idea going for about the better part of a year. Even put a launch date out there, had a plan to hit the launch date, and then looked at it and said, it's just not perfect. It's not the way I want it. Well, eventually, you got to jump. And you can't worry about the perfection, because ultimately, you're not making this for yourself. You're not making whatever product it is. You're not going to buy it. You may buy it yourself, but you're not making it for yourself. You're making it for other people. So what way are you going to get your customers' feedback other than to put it out there? You have to let your customers see, touch, feel, whatever it is your product is, so that you can get feedback, and then you can start to perfect it. But ultimately, you got to jump.
I'll put it in a sports context. We try to avoid that, but you and I go way back. Trey and I met playing basketball. He played at the Michigan State University, and I played at UAD. But, we didn't get good at basketball by waiting. You got to play the game. Absolutely. And you got to adapt and revise, and you practice, and you get better. And frankly, the same sports approach applies with business. And I'll give you an example of my FOOSFIT. Look, I got the idea, I put it on paper, I put clients through. I ended up having to go live with Instagram and the website. And I've made a whole bunch of tweaks to the website, to the business, and to how I market, to how I sell, to what I post. What I was posting 6 months ago and how I post is not how I post now. But I wouldn't have learned that or found what gets more engagement or found what people like versus what they don't like if I didn't just jump and do it. And I've made mistakes, and I've learned from those mistakes, and I've revised it, and I've gone forward accordingly. And I know what I'm doing in 6 months from now is probably going to be different than what I'm doing now. I'm going to learn. I'm going to get better. So just jump. Just jump. And I'm going to jump ahead real quick, but this is a hilarious quote from Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I tell my kids, I coach 4th grade basketball, and they're all nervous about shooting. I'm like, look, you ain't going to make it if you don't shoot. Go for it. You got to do it. And, you're going to start making them once you start shooting. but you're going to miss 100% if you don't shoot the shots. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, one of my things I always say: fear and worry are misuse of your intelligence and your imagination. You just got to get out there, conquer your goals, conquer whatever you're fearing, and know that failure it doesn't exist. I say there is no failure. You just learn and grow. So you got to take that shot. If you miss it to the right, you got to center yourself. It's that simple.
No doubt about it. Look, it sounds easy to say. It's basketball lingo, but man, you gotta reiterate that to yourself day in, day out. And finally here, folks, it is okay to say no. You got the idea, you got the business plan, you're ready to go live, you've gone live, you've got all these potential opportunities. You don't have to say yes to everything. Case in point, look, I gave away a fitness program to 5 people early on. But I've been approached by other people since then, like, hey, this would be great, marketing and business if you did this for 20 of my employees. Well, no, that's a huge time investment on my end. And at some point, you got to start making a little bit of money and start doing some things to justify what you're doing. You don't have to give away your product to anybody. So a lot of people feel obligated to do that. You can say no, analyze it, say yes to some things, but it's okay to say no. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to say no to things like that, and you also got to know your capabilities. In an entrepreneurial startup setting, you got to know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, because the old adage of you only get one time to make a first impression, it's true. You want your business to be shown in a good light, so don't bite off more than you can chew trying to say yes to everything. If you got a fitness, like you said with the 20 thing, maybe 20 people that they wanted you to train, maybe it's not that your program's not capable, you just don't have time to give them the focus that they need. So you want to make sure that you're saying yes to the right things, no to the right things, know what you know what you don't know, and make sure that you respond accordingly.
Same thing in the lawyer context, right? And anybody who's a lawyer or any kind of professional services and you deal with family, everybody wants free advice. And look, that comes with the job in terms of consultations and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, as a lawyer, I bill by my time. So if I, take on your case for 50 hours, I mean, that doesn't make financial sense. So that's kind of a good, I think it's just a tipping point of what you need to do. You're going to get that kit in the next 24 hours. Check those boxes. If you got any questions, after this webinar, certainly here's my contact information. Here's Trey's contact information. We'd love to digest with you guys and debrief and engage with you if you have any questions or concerns. But Jonathan, do we have any questions from the crowd? Well, we got a few minutes left.
We do have some questions that came in throughout the presentation. Thank you very much, Bernie and Trey. Going way back to the beginning, we were talking about the research. What are some of the approaches you took with Google doing your research to help establish your business?
Go ahead,
So
Trey.
there's a few different things that, without knowing the business that you're looking at, there's a few different things I would do. One, whatever the product is, I research the product so I know the product inside and out. I know what my competition is. I know exactly what I'm trying to create. I know where I want to go. I know what's possible with the product. I mean, literally figure out what the product is. And then I research the marketing aspect. What are the marketing avenues? What's being done? What do I think can be done? Those to me are the two things. If you have a product and you know how to get the product to your end user, I think those are the two things that you really need to research and understand. And then just making sure that you're using credible resources. The Google search will pop up a ton of stuff, but do your research. Use not just Google, but use YouTube as well, because there's a plethora of videos on how and what and when and where. It's the internet is the best resource. There's nothing that's not out there.
I mean, to oversimplify it, but it's so true. Literally type in the question into Google. I mean, how to become a personal trainer. See what pops up. Personal trainer certifications. See what pops up. Top influencers on social media for, fitness and nutrition. See what pops up. I mean, those are things that I typed in right off the bat, and that kind of put me down a few wormholes in terms of what people were doing and what they were looking for.
To make it even more simple, I think a really easy way to do this would be take whatever your product is and pick out your top competition and research it. Literally go through their website, go through everything, and write down what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and what you're going to do better. What marketing avenues they're using, what marketing avenues you think you can use to put your product out there. Literally compare it, and then do it again to another competitor. If it's a brand new idea, you might be starting a little bit more from scratch there, but I think the idea still holds. There's still things that you can pull from different people's companies. I've literally, that's how I did the podcast, just literally going through websites, pulling exactly what I liked, what I didn't like, and making comparisons.
What other questions we have?
So you spoke a bit about social media for advertising and getting the word out about your business. One of our attendees asked, for smaller businesses, what would you suggest as far as print advertising or non-social media for like a hair salon or a smaller restaurant? Are local newspapers still an option? What do you suggest?
Well, I'll take that. I mean, a couple things, and it's two prongs. One, you need to create a potential print advertisement if you want to do brochures, things like that. There's a great website that actually Trey put me on called Fiverr.com, Fiver.com. You can go there. You can have logos created, brochures, pamphlets, a whole bunch of things for $5 or $10, just to get some ideas in your mind of where you would be marketing. If you're going to have somebody go out and hand these out at a mall, you can have a logo and a brochure created on Fiverr.com. Again, Fiver.com. In terms of publications, I mean, look, you got to know your audience, right?
Yes.
So if you're looking at targeting folks, if you're a brick and mortar shop and you're in a certain city, yeah, if your folks are above 40 years old, the newspaper might be a good idea. And newspapers are always looking for advertising. Some newspaper organizations will have somebody in-house that will create the ad for you. It may be radio, your local radio station. I've got a good friend of mine, a good client, who is selling T-shirts targeted towards Detroit athletes and people, who like professional sports in Detroit. Well, a good spot for them is the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News, because they're trying to sell this to people above 40 years old. What are they looking at? What are they reading? What do you think?
No, that's absolutely it. Know your target audience and know where your target audience gets their information from. So it's really that simple. If they get their information from a newspaper, then it might be good. If it's a restaurant, you might look at, also, you might want to look at ways of getting free advertisement out there. With restaurants, that you can always pass out flyers, coupons, things of that nature to get your word out there.
I mean, I still get the Valpak. I mean, I don't know if folks outside of Michigan have heard of that, but it's the coupon book. But it's local businesses. It's not your Pizza Huts or big franchises like that. It's, Joe's Pizza Shop. Well, Joe's Pizza Shop's clientele is within a 2-mile radius. Well, Joe needs to get those coupons to the people in that 2-mile radius. So Joe needs to go to the coupon person. You can Google it, the Yellow Pages. Who does the coupons for that district?
Yeah, I mean, for whoever asked that question, I'd specifically love to talk more specifically to your business. That way we can figure out exactly what would be the right path for you on that. So
I think we got time for one or two more. Go ahead.
All right, here's one. Talking back about financing. Someone asked, how do you determine how much you need to start your new business, your startup, and to make sure you have enough to keep it afloat, to make it succeed?
Well, look, you got to put pen to paper or finger to keyboard, right? I mean, you got to start getting quotes, right? Okay, if you look at your business plan and things that you need, okay, I need a website. Well, start doing some research on what websites cost. I did some research. The first numbers I started to get was $3,000 to $5,000. That was way too much money. I ended up finding through Fiverr.com, there's people that will create your website for a couple $100 through various platforms. A pretty small investment, and you don't have to use it. But I found that those are the resources. But I started, website between $2,000 and $3,000. Same thing with T-shirts. Same thing with, a social media handle or things like that. You can start doing things that you might like and putting numbers to them, adding them up, and then there's kind of a big chunk of money of what you would see. In terms of if you're selling a product, well, how much is it going to cost you to create prototypes? You can start getting bids or quotes on that. Volume, you might get a volume discount, but you got to start, writing down what those numbers will be and adding them up.
Yeah, know what your startup costs are, and then knowing what your running the business costs are. What's it going to keep? What's your overhead? Knowing those things is going to allow you to run your business. And one tip that I'll give you: take whatever number you come up with, and add 10% at least. Put some type of miscellaneous because things come up.
No doubt about it. I mean, look, if you're selling a product, you got to buy a product. Do you need a brick and mortar place? There's rent. Do you actually need to hire any employees? There's a cost there. To get the business up and where it needs to be, you probably might have to add employees. Well, what's the going rate? Is it 25,000? Is it 35,000? Is it more than that? That at least gives you a ballpark of the potential cost that you'll need, such that if you need to go to a bank, or you need to go to your friend, or you need to put some agreement in place, you at least have an idea of what it's going to cost.
Or if you need to go to Bernie.
Yeah.
He's a good one.
Yeah, I'm a loan shark. One more question.
All right, one more question here. You mentioned Fiverr.com. Someone asked, are there other websites you can think of off the top of your head that could be a good resource for people to visit who are starting up a new company?
I'll defer to Trey on that. I love Fiverr simply because it's got so many things that you can get a video made, you can get Instagram posts made, you can get T-shirts made, you can get logos made, brochures. I mean, it's pretty much A to Z. But that was kind of been my go-to for free or really cost-efficient stuff that I can get creative. What else have you seen out there?
So I would say there's a few websites that you can use. Fiverr is great. There's also other freelance websites like Upwork and freelance.com. Those you'll usually be able to find people to do whatever you need in the price range that fits your budget. And obviously, I always say you can get things cheap, you can get things fast, or you can get high quality. Pick two. You're not going to be able to get all three. So understand that when you're going out and you're taking in bids for whatever you're trying to get accomplished. If you're looking for product base, Alibaba is a great resource. It's the drop shipping market. It's out of China. It's pretty much where half of the stuff we buy anyway is coming from. It's a great market to where you can buy things in bulk and mark it up, and it's all about your marketing and all the other good stuff that goes into selling a product. The other resources I'd use are, there's ways to make money off of YouTube and things of that nature too, with affiliate marketing and Amazon and things of that nature. So those are all good websites and web resources that you can use to expand or start your entrepreneurial journey.
I think we're good to go. If anybody else has any questions or would like to chat further, we've given you our both our email, our Twitter, our Instagram. Feel free to email us, slide in our DM, give us some questions. We'd be happy to interact with you and chat with you further. This is just something that we, both Trey and I, we're passionate about it. Like, we
Absolutely.
love entrepreneurs. We love doing it. We love succeeding. We respect and love learning from failure. It's not for everybody, but we love doing it. We love talking about it. And I think you'll find too with social media and others, there's a lot of really smart and good people out there who are really willing to share their time. You just got to ask.
Absolutely. Use your resources. I'm making myself available. You've got my cell number up there. You've got my email address. Instagram, you can slide in my DM if I can figure that part out. And hit me up. I'm a resource. I love this stuff. I would absolutely love to help anybody out there in any way I can.
All right, you'll be getting the kit in the next 24 hours. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, and jump on mogulsecrets.com, and there's a free ebook on there for you as well.
Thank you very much.